Welcome to Resource Sessions. I'm Gwendolyn Sterk of Sterk Family Law Group, and today we have with us Kristine Cain of Building Bright Futures. Welcome, Kristine. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Hi.
So, I'm very excited to learn about the organization that you have. So, the first question we have is, can you give us a little bit of the history of the evolution of the organization and why it was founded?
I started building Bright Futures for three reasons primarily. One, for my parents. Let me tell you exactly what we do though. We provide support for families by empowering parents. So it's all about parents. So that's part of the reason why I bring my own parents into this because they grew up on the south side of Chicago. They had some rough childhoods. They're both highly traumatized people. And so they came into parenting without a lot of knowledge of how to do that. So that's one of the reasons. The other is I'm a mom. And I know that because of the relationship that like in the parenting skills that I had growing up or with him, he struggled because there were so many things that I didn't know. And then the third reason is because I'm a therapist and I work primarily with adults with early childhood trauma, neglect, and adversity. And I think that's something we kind of need to redefine because no one would have looked at my life or no one would have looked at my son's life and said, wow, he's got some things going on there. A lot of times I know some of the clients that I work with, some of their biggest problem is they had overindulgent parents. And so that becomes their trauma, if you will. And so wanting to help people understand parenting, there's so much about it that we just don't know when we get into it. And no one really trains us for that. What we have is the foundation of our own family and what we learned then.
Sure.
And so that's basically, that's kind of the gist of all of this. And I just really felt a need to help people just know some of the things that they don't know.
Sure. Think about it. There's no real guide. You have a child and you're thrown into it and you gotta, fend for yourself unless there's a source to get help because there isn't a manual that comes with it.
Right, right, right. Well, we always say, one of our little insight things is the manual is the one that your grandparents gave to your parents and then you inherited from them. And so sometimes that manual has some things that you never want to do in it. And then it also has lots of things that you do.
Sure.
Um, but we just don't learn. And we think parenting is supposed to come naturally. And in so many ways it does. But we get in our own heads. We start to kind of freak out about whether we're doing the right things. It's upsetting for a parent. We're humans first. We get stressed by things, and children can be a source of that stress, you know?
Well, very good. And so then tell us, that's kind of the purpose of the history behind it. What is it that Building Bright Futures offers to individuals?
So we do a variety of different workshops. We have an ongoing support group that we do. And so, yeah, we partner with other agencies. We do support some of our own workshops, but we predominantly partner with other agencies, churches, schools, other nonprofit agencies, community centers, and provide our workshops at their location.
Nice.
Um, and so yeah, some of the workshops that we do, we have one called Parenting 101, and that's sort of some basics, trying to understand yourself as you are engaging in this job of raising your children. And then understanding some of the basic needs of childhood. It's really a very basic introduction to some of our other services. One of my favorite workshops that we do is called Heart Smart. It's all about emotions, and helping people understand their own emotions, and parents understand their own emotions. So often, you know, if I don't have an understanding of my emotions, then I can't help my child with their emotions. And
Right.
emotional intelligence is probably the number one predictor of adult success. And I don't mean financial necessary, I mean more relational, which then also, leads to career success. But if we don't have a good foundation of our emotions, all the intelligence in the world might not help us have the life and the like connections that we want.
So tell me, what does a typical workshop look like? How long does it go? Is it several days? How does it work?
So, it's usually just one day. and it's about an hour and a half. But like the Heart Smart one, that comes in two parts, and I'm actually looking at creating a third part to that. So, Parenting 101, that's two parts. It's an hour and a half. One of the things that we're doing, we're working with a center in Joliet, and we're doing like a three-part series for that one. We're doing a movie night. It's a kind of like a family afternoon where the kids go play with some people. We are going to work with the parents. We come together, we do a craft, we watch a movie, just hang out a little bit, and then the next group that's just a support group for parents to kind of talk about, their experience with emotions over the past couple of weeks and how it's working out. And then we're going to do another same like family day and watch another movie. So, that's one of our newer ventures. But yeah, they're usually an hour and a half, and it just, we talk, there's some reflection, there's some learning, there's some communication. I think community is something we really lack today.
For
And
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and these groups can provide that sense of not being alone. So it's so funny. Parents struggle so much and in such similar ways, but they think they're the only one.
Right, right. And I also think, and I have known through my course of my career, that a lot of people that meet in these types of groups, sometimes those relationships are lifelong. It's kind
Mhm.
of an interesting when you meet at that place that you're struggling in the same sense as a, other person attending, that bond that you can create and learn really can give you an opportunity. So it's got so many different functions with it. An education component, a social component, so much that's out there to be able to reach out. And I think that parents are desperate for this information, but it also is, a commitment of some of your time. In order to get this
Yeah,
information, you have to take that step and you have to go in that direction. So,
yeah.
you've been around for a while now and I understand the services. How do people have an opportunity to get involved with your group?
Well, one of the things, being that we're so young, we are all donation based.
Okay.
So donations would be great, and that you can find on our website. But they can also, one of my favorite support groups that we have has multi-generations in it. So, even if somebody's older and their kids are a little bit older, having them come and be with these younger parents is a wonderful thing because they have wisdom and knowledge and information that, young parents need to hear, right? That's
Right.
kind of that village it takes. And so
Mhm.
that's another way. I know a lot of times it's like, this is more geared towards people with younger parents or teens or something like that. But even older people can get involved because that wisdom is priceless. Uh,
100%. And so many of those grandparents, in that, age group, they're struggling with how do they relate with the new generation? How do they navigate through family dynamics? If there's a divorce and, the mom and dad are not necessarily together, but they need to have a relationship with both, how is it that they can evolve and understand that emotional commitment that they need, right? And it's
yeah,
emotional bounding with
yeah.
big children. So I think that's wonderful.
And you make a great point. So often we need to understand this generation. So often we reflect on our own generation, our own growing up. And growing up, I grew up in the 80s, 70s, 80s. Growing up then was so different from it is right now. And like people can't expect kids to react the way that they did to things or to behave the way that
100%,
they did.
right?
Yeah, because today it's a different world out there. And we need to see it in action by connecting with people of different generations.
Correct. And in like manner, I think that sometimes the young people lose out because they only see it through the lens or the window pane
Right.
of today's generation and not understanding that history. And so, there's not one easy answer here, right? I mean, I think there's good and bad from each one of those generations. So trying to
Absolutely.
find how to mesh that together and become the best parent that you can really becomes critical.
Yeah, definitely.
And you get involved in that in a lot of different community things where you see the age groups splitting off, right? I mean, even take certain, you know, religious ceremonies. The older people go to one group and the younger people go to another, where in years past they might have been mixed together, but because they
Right.
approach it so different. But it doesn't make one way completely right and the other way completely wrong either.
Correct. And I think we need both.
Yeah,
Sometimes you need to have all women together, all men together, kids
sure,
together, teens together. But then you do need to have that connection, that multi-generational, knowledge and just learning through people who have been there before, or like, yeah, that know more than you do because they've been on the planet longer, just that.
sure. So a parent is out there and they're listening today and saying, "Hey, look, I'm struggling. I try to go to the school, I try to get the services that they have for the school, but I know it's just not working and things are, you know, just almost at a standstill." And that's how they feel and they don't even know where to start. I call it paralysis, right?
Mhm.
How does a parent get to know what you do and the services that you provide?
So, probably the best way is through our website. It's www.bbffamilies.org. And that there's a lot of information there. There's the way to contact, me through that. But you can see the groups and the workshops that we have coming up. That's probably the best way.
That's great. And I think that and being a therapist, I know on a regular basis for your other part of your job and your career, this is not a replacement. This is in addition. I think sometimes people don't want to approach a group that has that support network or the educational seminars because they feel that they're violating some kind of trust. And I don't think that's the case. This is a supplement, correct? Can be
Correct.
a standalone or a supplement.
Yeah, yeah. And something, I spent a lot of years working with individuals, families, couples, things like that. And a couple of years ago, several years ago actually, started doing some groups. And then I did a mindfulness women's group that meets, now we're meeting once a month. And what I have found is working as an individual, it is wonderful. But working when you've got a group of people together that get to hear everyone's story and truly get to know they're not alone. And you might have one person that says, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," and you got five, six, seven people saying, "Oh, well, here's how I handle it," or "Did you think about this?" or "Maybe you could try that." So you get all this support and all these different ideas that then you get to kind of take and figure out what you're going to do with and how you're going to approach whatever you've got going on. So it has been such a boon to people to get together. Like I could go off on the fact that we need to have community again. I don't know if you've ever heard the book Bowling Alone.
I've not.
Oh, it's a good book. He also the same guy also made a movie called Join or Die. It's a little
Okay.
mistitled, but it's all about the importance of
Okay.
community.
Well, that's great, and I will certainly look into that because I think it's important for us to understand that. Now, I think that people also, and I want you to address this, feel embarrassed
Yeah.
that they're not good enough as a parent that they need to reach out for a support group. Now, I see the world differently, and I think the perception is different. Can you address that issue?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought it up because I think it's one of our biggest challenges. Because whenever I talk about building bright futures and what we're up to, everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's so wonderful. We so need this." But then when it comes down to do it, we feel so much shame
Right.
but by thinking that we're not doing enough.
Mhm.
And I'm big on social media in positives, but also the negatives, in that we compare constantly. So we very often see other people doing things and think we should be doing that, and then feel shame because we don't or we can't. And so, one of the things that we're so passionate about is making people feel comfortable and at home and taking out the stigma and the shame about getting help because we need to learn. We have to learn.
Right.
There's so many things. There's some simple ideas about child rearing that if you don't know, you can't do.
Right.
So trying to put it into that perspective, everybody, I do not know one parent out there that set out to say, I'm going to have some kids and I'm going to screw them all up because I want to. Everyone's intentions are wonderful. They want the best for their children. It's just sometimes they don't know how to do that. And a lot of it is because of, like their own internal ways of being and relating that challenge the need to be the adult or the leader in their family. And so to try and understand that, and then to realize we're here to empower, not to shame, not to criticize. Like a lot of times, people say something that they've done. I'm like, how did that go? And,
Right.
oh, do you think that was offensive? No, let's see what else we can do. It's never to look at that past in a way that is criticizing or damning or anything like that. It's like, let's be an investigative reporter there and
Mhm.
then see what we can do differently.
Right. And I do think that, over the time, and I've been practicing law for 36 years, so I have seen the mental health piece go from, before everybody thinking labeling or that you were ill or there was something wrong to now understanding that it really is an education and something that can be very beneficial and that the courts look at it with a positive tone, at least from a family law perspective. It's not viewed as this negative, and we could all understand that. But then I think that when you get to groups, you have a whole nother dynamic because now you're not just going alone individually to see a therapist. You're exposing yourself to the potential that there might be, a distant cousin to the 16th degree or a friend
Sure.
of a friend of
Yeah.
a friend that shows up at one of these groups. And then you're worried that you're going to be embarrassed or something else. And I think the tone has to be set that education is our key to knowledge, and education gives us that power, not the ability. So it doesn't matter. You're not going and saying, I got bad parenting style. You're going to say, hey, I recognize I'm navigating something I got to get some help with. So, how do you address that for the individual to help them get into that group setting?
Well, a couple of things. I like that you said the idea about like the court supporting getting
Mhm.
support because so often people think that it's going to be damaging to their
Right.
situation,
Yeah.
and it's not. You're doing something. Um, but if you think about it, there's mental illness, and I mean diagnosable true mental illness, and then there's the rest of us, right?
Right.
And
Mhm.
and I don't know a person that doesn't have some manner of anxiety or depression. If you consider, I follow this gentleman, his name is Gordon Neufeld. He's huge in parenting and working with children that struggle. And he says upwards of 85% of people have an attachment disorder,
Okay.
leaving 15% of us solid, right? Like rocking
That's
it out.
a small number,
It
right?
is, it's
Yeah.
horribly small. And so if you think about 50, there are 85% of people struggling, what does that look like?
Right.
It's anxiety, it's depression, it's a need to escape, it's wanting, to come home and have that glass of wine or lock yourself in the bathroom and dive into social media or play your Candy Crush or whatever, whatever game it
Right.
is.
Whatever you do. Right.
Right. And it's that's the telltale, right? That's the thing that like kind of lets you know if you need that escape, if you can't handle certain things, if you're struggling to deal with it, that's mental struggles. We won't categorize that as illness by any means.
Mhm.
It's funny to me. I see people, I'm like, oh my God, I talk about anxiety and they're like, oh, I'm not anxious. And I'm like, you don't think
Yeah.
so?
Right.
You appear to be very anxious to me right now. I'm feeling that anxiety right now, you
I
know?
understand. Yeah. No, and I understand, and they don't want to put the people are afraid of that labeling process rather
Yeah.
than understanding, hey, we're humans, and depending on where you're going through, and you think about the changes of life, whether it be parenting, whether it be a life change like a divorce, or you have a
Mm.
loss of a loved one, you have a change in work, you've got self-esteem issues, somebody just makes a comment at work, and unfortunately, sometimes it can really irritate all of us, okay? We're
Right.
all in the same boat because we're called human beings, and that's why we need
Exactly.
that support, right? And I
Yes.
think that's especially true of parenting. So we can't thank you enough for getting this together because parents need a place to go to. And I want to make the call to those that are listening today. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Just understand this is an opportunity. It's something that's there. And to understand that people are going out of their way in a not-for-profit to be able to give you this ability is really, it's really quite amazing. So we really do support what you do. Now, let's say that there's somebody listening and they say, okay, I get your donation piece and that we can go on the website and that donations are needed. And we all understand that that's life. What else can people do though to support your entity?
Well, I think that if they're a part of an organization, maybe their church, or maybe they have, a book club or something that they're involved in, um, and they want to have maybe us come and do a an amended workshop or kind of like just an educational thing, to contact us, to connect us with maybe the church or, the schools. We're working with schools in Oak Lawn right now to try and support parents. And so there's lots of different ways that like parents or people can help us kind of bring our services to different areas. So that's probably one of the, what I would love to see is, like people reaching out to bring us into their world, whatever that world is.
100%. Well, do you have any fundraisers or events that somebody can say, hey, this is going to give me an opportunity to learn more about your organization?
Currently, we don't have any. We are working to schedule our first next year.
Okay.
So yeah, we can look for that on our
I have
website.
to follow you and keep up with what you're doing there.
Yes, yeah, we are on social media as well. So yeah.
Certainly some really amazing things, and I think it's a really good point. And I have to tell you, and I don't mean to get off subject, but I know that a lot of parents are particularly struggling in the teen years when their child makes that first step. And a lot of people that we've seen in the last, I would say 3 to 5 years, where there was no notification, but all of a sudden your child has engaged in some drug use or alcohol use, and you need to do something about it. You cannot put your head under that lampshade and
Yeah.
just think it doesn't happen. So I know that there are so many parents at so many different levels. So this isn't, I just want to be clear before we end. Your group is not just for that one that has a child under 5 and they're embarking on that
No,
parenting journey. Your group is for everybody at whatever stage they are in that parenting.
absolutely. Yeah.
And it could be adult parenting as well, because all these tools really can be used at any stage. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think about what we promote and the needs of childhood and things like that. They're the needs of life, right? Everybody has these needs, and when we can communicate better, when we can understand our emotions, all of our relationships improve, right?
Mhm.
It's not just, I mean, our focus is kids, but what I know is that that'll spill out into the relationship that you have with everyone, your partner, your ex, your parents, your coworkers, your friends, everyone. Everyone benefits when you feel more grounded in who you are and when you know yourself better. And so that's what, if you're there, you're going to be better to everyone in your life.
Well, if you're listening today, please reach out, look at the website. Kristine Cain is a wonderful individual with great skills, and it needs to be viewed as education so that we can all move forward in a positive way. I certainly appreciate your time today, Kristine. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gwen. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.